We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right, first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on February 27th. If everyone take a minute to read those, or if you already have, and see if there are any changes needed.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as read.
Second.
Any other discussion needed? All those in favor?
Mr. Chair, the next thing I have added, when we submitted the backup material out for the website, the budget that I sent you members, I had to make a tweak on that budget based on just staffing actuals with workers' comp calls, retirement calls, things like that. So it changed that local ATAX budget just a touch. So I need to amend the motion. I need a motion to amend the agenda in order to reflect the updated local APAC supplemental budget that is now in front of you on the large piece of paper. And I'll explain I'll explain the two areas whenever we get to that point.
Okay, great. So do we have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Treasurer's report, would you like me to take that and run with it? Since I got a few things out of order here.
You may, yes, go ahead.
All right, so as we go through our treasurer's report, I wanted to update you on the collection of both the local and the state side. We are continuing to see that gradually increase, depending on, last year it dropped about 1%, but this year we're on track, we're about 5.3% above last year. You can see through February, those collections, we brought in 37,000 more through February as we did through February of last year, so we're about 5% up. So all of our projections are based off of these numbers, and the budget that we're gonna look at today is based off the projection of that total coming through. Again, and I like to do this when we're in this meeting to highlight the success of that host compliance software. And what it's doing for us. If you look back just 5 years ago, we were bringing in $320,000 a year, and now we're a little over $1 million. And so that is a direct reflection of not really growth in more lodging properties, it's the compliance of the lodging properties that we have in hand. They are going up a little bit. They are saturating a little bit, but this is more of the compliance piece of getting everybody on board. So just wanted to show you where we are. The hotels bring in about 43% of that money. Short-term rentals brings in 44% of that money, and the campgrounds bring in 13% of that money. And I evaluate that pie graph every year. So at the end of the year, I'll do another evaluation and update those numbers. The next chart is the state ATAX dollars. It sort of follows suit when you look at that graph. And the reason is when we come into a contact with a non-compliant lodging partner, the packet they get from us to welcome them to the community is to be compliant both on the local side and the state side. So it's an easy thing for them to do that. But this is up 4.4% the first 2 quarters so far this year. So we anticipate that to have a little bit of growth this year as well. So with those 2 graphs that you see, that then relates to the actual treasurer's report, which you also have a sheet that accompanies that in front of you today. It shows the beginning balance in April 2nd, and then it shows all of our encumbrances. That's projects that's been approved that we haven't completed and the invoices haven't been paid yet. And then we've got the supplemental ATAX budget balance, which if you look at the big sheet I gave you, the bottom right-hand corner, the balance of what hasn't been spent yet matches that encumbrance of that supplemental ATAX budget. So that gives us 1.2 in that budget right now, 1.259. on the local side. I'm estimating 1,107,000 for collections for FY '26. Again, that's based off that chart I just showed you and the growth of that 5% for next year. The state side, if you follow your treasurer's report sheet, you'll see that I'm showing you about 3 years worth here because there's usually only one expense check written out, but there's quarterly checks that come in. So I wanted you to see how that was based out. So that 65% at the bottom, you've got your one check going out to visit Oconee operations, and then you've got the quarterly checks coming into the county. And you'll see that that number, 459,967. On the screen here, I've got an encumbered amount of $190,090. That's the boat docks that y'all approved several meetings ago. They are in progress, but we haven't paid that check yet. So once it's paid, that'll come off of this and you'll be able to see that. But until it's paid, it's encumbered in a PO, and that gives you your balance available as of today for $269,877. And then I'm expecting next year's state aid tax, 65%, to be about $374,308. Any questions on that treasurer's report?
That's 190 for boat docks, that's it, is that at Seneca Creek?
No, sir, that was 5 separate docks. That was matched up with a grant from delegation with DNR, and that was fishing pier at High Falls, courtesy dock at High Falls, a fishing pier at South Cove, a courtesy dock at South Cove, a kayak dock at South Cove, and a courtesy dock at South Cove. So it was 5 total new docks to replace outdated docks. Yes, ma'am.
Question, can you talk a little bit more about the compliance, about the revenue and how the compliance is it because people weren't collecting the taxes and
Yeah,
remitting
so
them, or?
Before we started the software back in 19, people were paying us checks to be in compliance. And as we learned, and it really came about, I went to a conference and I had another community present their impacts of this software and the fact that they had so many short-term rentals that were not in compliance. Up until then, Mandy, about once a quarter, would go online and try to make a spreadsheet of all the short-term rentals that you could find through Airbnb, VRBO, and we were kind of trying to match that versus who was paying to see, because we didn't have any other software. So this software created a geofence around the county, and anything that is listed digitally, we capture. And then once we capture it, they kind of get triggered into that system of getting notified that they're not in compliance. From a lodging partner standpoint, they're collecting it from the customer. So if they weren't collecting it from the customer, we didn't want to tax them on back taxes because they didn't collect it. So we just, at that point, began just an education campaign of get you in compliance, and then once you start collecting it from customers, then you start remitting that back to the county. And so that education component took us from what we thought was a good compliance was really only about 30% compliant, up to what we think now is probably 95% compliant.
Okay, thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report? Okay. I put in your email that I sent you, I wanted to quickly go over just a little bit about A-taxes because we do have some new commission members going through this budget for the first time. And if you think about the top, and this is kind of going back to what I just shared, the lodging partner collects a total of 5% from a customer. And if you look at that, and we'll go left first, 2% of that is submitted by the lodging partner to the state of South Carolina. That is gone through the state's formulas. They fund a number of things with it on the state level. And then each of the 46 counties receives quarterly checks back to their county based on the formula that all the revenue around the state. Prior to 2019, we used to get back more than we collect. We've grown now, or we've become more compliant now to the point where we actually are giving some money away to some other counties at this point. What that means is, when I get a quarterly check, there may be a section on there that says deferred to county supplement. And that means that some of the counties that don't bring in a lot of A-tax money, the state has a formula that takes some of the higher performing counties and divides that money out into some of the lower performing counties so that they've got some money to do tourism operations with. So typically, it's anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000 a check. So it's not a major amount, but as we grow, that also grows just a little bit. So when that money goes to the state, it comes back to us. The statute lays out how that money is distributed. The first $25,000 of the first quarter check is general fund revenue. It just goes to the county as general fund revenue. The balance of the first quarter, minus that $25,000, is then split into three pots. The 30% fund, the 65% fund, and the 5% fund. The 5% fund is also general fund. So the county gets 25% plus 5%. The 30% by statute
Well,
has
sorry, it's 25,000.
25,000 plus the
Plus
5%.
5%.
Sorry, did I say percent?
Yeah.
25,000 plus the 5%. The 30% fund by statute has to go to an outside organization that has an ongoing tourism promotion program. Oconee County has used Visit Oconee for, since its existence for that operation. So when a check comes in, and let's just say it's a $10,000 in that 30%, as soon as that 10,000 comes into the county, a check for 10,000 is cut to Visit Oconee. And that's part of the 30% fund we'll talk about in just a little bit on the state side. The 60%, 65% fund, also by statute, is set up, and it has to be spent on tourism-related expenditures. And there in the middle is just kind of how the state breaks down those percentages. We, on the local level, use our local A-tax for a lot of those items already. And so we use the 65% and have traditionally on the last one, which is operating the Visitor Information Center. That's the salaries for the Visit Oconee operation. If you go to the right side of that document, that page, 3% coming from the lodging partner comes directly to us. And that spreadsheet is what I build, the very first one I showed you on. This one. I missed it. Okay. So that is the 3% money right there. So when that money comes in, it goes into that fund, and you as a commission approve the supplemental budget we're going to talk about today, and you do the grant process. And that makes up the local A-tax side. That's a lot of information. Any questions on that? So today, we are looking at those three items that I've got circled. So we'll look at the local A-tax on the first, the big sheet that we got, and I'll go through all that in detail. And then we're going to look at the 30 and the 65, and you guys have the responsibility to approve that, and then it goes as part of the budget ordinance. Does that make sense? Okay. So today we've got three items. We've got the local A-tax budget, and I'm going to go through that in detail. We've got the state A-tax budget broken into those two pieces, and then I've got one action item for a piece of equipment that we need to replace within our parks. So if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I'll take off.
Sure.
All right, so we'll start with the local A-tax budget. That is the large sheet you have in front of you. It's probably going to be easier to look at the large sheet than the screen. And the left-hand side, the column on the left is simply the description, the name of that line item. You can see in the second column kind of where that goes, what part of that line item that is, and how we have it broke out in our software. The line item doesn't mean anything to you, that's just our coding aprons for when we do get invoices in, they're coded to those specific items. And the green column, the first green column is last year's money. You can see that we are going up significant amounts because we're trying to utilize the majority of this money to offset the general fund the best we can, to impact our services. So last year we brought in $1 million last year. There was 647 in this budget. You gave away another 140 through the A-tax budget. So we have a quick math, that's 780. Well, that means there was about 200,000 that was really not set anywhere. Now, this budget by statute has to just continually sit by itself, and it grows as you bring it in and utilize it. When we don't spend it, that fund just continues to grow, and we're able to do projects with it. So over the past 4 or 5 years, we've had a little bit of money each year where we didn't have it set in a budget, and it collected. Well, the statute says that we have to spend this within 2 years of receiving it. So that's why we did the docks last year. We had an opportunity that built up for a capital project, we put that towards the docks, and we don't want that to happen again. We want to try and capture everything that we're spending dollars on in this budget, and then this will be part of our financial software. As we spend and collect, we're able to track it, and all of our capital stuff we'll utilize for our fund balance and our capital millage, and then some of the excess on the state side that I'll show you in just a few minutes. So going down through here, the first one, county park maintenance buildings and grounds, that 105 was taking out of the general fund about 4 years ago. So it was a straight reduction out of the general fund. This year I am proposing to go up. We're adding 3 line items on there. We're outsourcing some things that makes sense from both operational and safety. For example, some of our office has windows up high. And so we're outsourcing now with a company to come in and clean the high windows that do that all the time. That's safer than our staff who don't do that all the time, trying to get up there and clean. So that professional line items that you'll see, we're starting to outsource a few things that will help us operationally. So we are proposing that go up a little bit to cover that this year. You can see year to date, this is as of last week, how much has been spent out of that account from last year, and you can see what's left to get us through June 30th. So there's nothing on here that is a surprise. Everything is on track for us this year. We monitor this with our staff on a monthly basis.
What will that free up your staff to do if they had one to do?
Well, as our camping numbers continue to go up, we've been chasing well, I can't really say that. We've been chasing ourselves for a long time. So it really just allows us to be a little more efficient. The second line item there is county park seasonal staffing. This again was directly taking out of the general fund budget about 4 years ago when we first started this. We do have, you see there's 63% of our total seasonal costs, so that other 37% is in our general fund budget. So, for example, when we hire part-time staff, let's say at Charram Park where Mandy's at, she'll use what's in the professional budget of the general fund until it runs out, which is typically around November, December. And then she'll flip over to this lat fund, and that'll carry her through the rest of the year. As our numbers come in, we are trying to grow that number too. That used to be in the 30%, then it went up to 40%, then it was like 57%, now it's 63%. So we're continually trying to extract as much as we can out of the general fund and pay it out of this, so that our tax base on the tourism side is equaling the impact of what we're doing for those parks. Does that make sense? And the increase in that number is the wage and comp study last year. So we raised our hourly rate. So we were paying people $13.50, and we went up to $15.75 for part-time work. And January 1st of next year, that's going up to $16 based on the wage and comp. So I have a separate spreadsheet that bleeds into this that shares the first half of the year at $15.75, the second half of the year at $16, that shows these numbers. And each park has a certain amount of labor hours that they utilize, that they have a sheet that's broken down for that number. The third line item is utilities. Again, directly retracted out of the general fund budget. This is to offset 50% of all of our utility costs across our recreation facilities. And this year we're adding some internet costs for a couple of museums. The Cherokee Museum and the Military Museum are both housed in county buildings. So the internet provider is through the large internet provider service that we have, but we're gonna take that cost out and pay for it out of LAT, so it's not paid for out of general fund money, if that makes sense. The next line item is Lake Hartwell Parks. That is, you can see all the parks named there: Holders, Lawrence Bridge, Seneca Creek, Friendship, Fair Play, Joe Stewie, Mullins Ford, South Union, Timberlake, Lakeshore, and Barton's Mill. All of those have a cost associated with, picking up the trash, cleaning the restrooms, all the things associated with cutting the grass, and the equipment that goes with that, the maintenance side. And so those line items are used specifically for that. We are increasing that a little bit. We took that was $30,000 last year. We dropped it down to 10, and we had to create a temporary full-time position, and I'll explain that when I get to the staffing side. And so that deducted out of this number, but we're still going over a little bit in toilet paper, trash bags, things we're having to buy for all those locations. So I did bump that up just a little bit for this year.
Is that out of general fund?
No, sir, all this is out of LAT. All this is out of LAT. It was coming out of the general fund before we kind of created this. So this is our 5th, I believe, budget like this, that we started, we're taking stuff out.
I remember when you started.
Yeah, and it has deducted my general fund budget, it has decreased. The next one, university interns, that's just part of the seasonal staffing up top. The county park programming, this is we do about 150 different programs throughout the county parks. Spring breaks, monarch butterflies, I mean, you name, there's a whole bunch. But this supports that. Any festivals, any things we do at the parks, and they have spreadsheets within their systems that label up to that equal up to that. We're a touch under this year, so I dropped it $1,000 based on where we are, and staff felt like they could operate within that without any issues. The next one, Visit Oconee, that's a direct supplement. Up until this year, that was in the general fund budget. So this is a brand new move across this year. After this is approved, then we will have $0, and I put this in the email to you guys, we'll have $0 going towards tourism out of the general fund. Everything will be accommodation status. That was a goal when we first started everything. So this is the first year we'll be able to say that. That means no local taxpayer dollars are going to support any tourism efforts. The next item is county park operations. This too is a new item. This was the training of all of our staff. We have a number of certified staff throughout our system that need continuing ed. I also like to participate in our annual conference and take our staff. It gives them a chance to learn, to network. We get a lot of ideas from those locations. This software was one of them that has made this big difference. So we took this out of general fund. This was coming out of one of the administrator accounts before, and now it's going to be coming out of this account. The marketing, promotions, and sponsorships, that is a general line item. It captures everything from our waterfall brochure that we distribute all across the South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. We pay a company to do that, so that comes out of that. Any kind of promotions that I do for tournaments, so the disc golf stuff that we may sponsor or help promote, or some of the fishing tournament stuff that we may help sponsor and promote, all of that comes out of this general line item. And it's staying consistent. We've spent about $30,000 in that number this year. That also covers our Sports Alliance partnership, which is again where we get in front of everyone that has the events and try to bring them into Oconee as we see fit, or if it's a good fit. The next one is safety. There's a deduct in there, but it's a deduct because I deducted it last year. We still didn't use it like we intended to, but it may come back to us at some point. This was originally placed in here. At some point, we will work with emergency management, and we will be putting out compliance signs on docks on Lake Kiwi for 911 emergencies. For if you're out on the lake and something happens, you can look at a dock and you'll see a number on a dock, and you'll say, I'm near whatever that number is. We're gonna use the safety dollars to pay for that signage. We're trying to get our addressing system accurate so that it all feeds together, and we haven't been able to do that yet. So once we do, I'll bring that back to you, and we'll put that back in. So if we're not spending it, it was $50,000. I took it down to 10 last year. We haven't, so I took it back down to 5. So we will eventually come back to you, and I think what we'll do is just bring the whole project back at that point and say, here is the signed project, and let's fund it out of the fund balance. But I didn't see a need to leave it in here if we weren't using that money and didn't know we were gonna use the money. So I went in and took it out. The next one is secondary gate signage, gateway signage. That project is complete. You've seen those up at our entranceways of the county. So we buffed that up last year, knowing that was coming.
But, I've got, sorry,
Yep.
my mind's turning on the signage on the boat docks. Do the buoys and things of that nature not work the same on Kiwi? I'm not familiar with Kiwi.
So no, Kiwi does not have numbers on buoys,
Gotcha.
like the Coral Lakes do.
Okay,
Like, on Hartwell, you may have a T60 buoy, and that tells you where you are.
yes,
Kiwi does not have navigational buoys like that.
follow you.
So if you're on Kiwi, you either have to find a number of an island if you don't know where you are, or this will help, a boat dock on a number that when you call 911, you can say, I can see island number 3, or I can see boat dock, whatever.
I got you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
those are private boat docks that will have these numbers on them, or is it the
Um,
public docks, or?
I am not sure yet. The intention is that homeowners will, partner to host those. I know Pickens has done some on their side, so if you're out on the lake, you look to the right, if you're going up the lake, you'll see some. The intention is for us to catch up with that.
Okay.
Secondary signs are complete. What's in there now, we did buff that up to pay for that project. What's in there now for $15,000 is now just maintenance of all the brown signs that we have around the county. You'll be amazed how many of those get hit, and I have to remake them. Whether it's a car, 90% of the time, it's a mower. It's a mower that's got the grass on the side of the road, and they have to raise that boom up to go around the sign, and they don't quite get it up high enough, and they hit the sign. Or sometimes it's a vehicle accident that runs through the sign, and we have to replace it. So there is a cost associated with that, and we capture it there. The next one is the docent programming. This is the 4 historical areas where we provide a docent. We provide 15 hours per week for those docent areas. That is the General Store Museum in Westminster, the Oconee Military Museum, the Cherokee Museum of South Carolina, and the Foothills Farm Store. We started this is probably our 6th or 7th year of this program, to provide some funds to help those locations to have comparable hours across the week that are open to the public. So now Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you've got 5 hours open every week for those locations. And so that money is coming out of this fund. It is going up because again, wage and comp, we're raising our dollars. That increase is a direct reflection of
And
that.
that wage and comp study, that was countywide,
It was
correct?
countywide, yeah.
That money ever been in the county general fund? Or
The docents? No, sir, it was completely started out of here. The next one is the full-time staff. So we have 2 full-time staff members now that are completely paid out of LAT. One of them is a museum employee. The second one is the new position that I shared with you earlier that was temporary, and we're rolling the temporary off because we can only have somebody on temporary for so many months, and then you gotta make a decision, what you're gonna do with them. So we were paying an employee up here under seasonal staffing, on the second line item, we were paying them to go out to all the Lake Hartwell parks. And part of that money was in the Lake Hartwell Park operations side. There was a policy put in place by our partnering staffing agency that no longer allowed an employee to drive a vehicle and pull a trailer as part of their policy. They could drive a vehicle, but they couldn't pull anything, they couldn't tow anything. So that hurt us because the person that goes out to those ramps tows a trailer to pick up trash, tows a trailer to haul lawnmowers and weed eaters and things like that. So we transferred that money out of those into this full-time and made it temporary full-time. And this year, we're having to take the temp off. So that person will roll into a full-time spot, but it's all paid out of ATAC, salary, fringe, and everything. And that's a custodial position for the Lake Hartwell Park. That makes sense? And that was because the staffing no longer allows them to drive a vehicle and tow a trailer. And I don't have a full-time staff to do that. That's the reason we were going this route. The last one is completely new. So it's been a desire of mine for a while. I've talked to the sheriff a number of years to assist with a law enforcement officer that would have non-emergency primary duties of patrolling all of these recreation areas. And we are at a point, as we built this budget, that we could accomplish that. So we worked with Ms. Rock to create this budget, worked with the sheriff to create the dollar amount. This is a deputy two. You know, after this year, and you take the equipment off in the vehicle, that'll go down to about $73,000 a year for ongoing expenses, just for salary and fringe. But the sheriff, they still work for the sheriff. They're, you know, they don't have anything to do with us. We're just paying for that position. And their primary role outside of emergency time is going to be patrolling all these unmanned locations. We have a lot of vandalism issues, a lot of unmanned parks throughout the county, whether it's Ford, Duke, some on the river. So this person will kind of have they'll kind of make their own route and work around and be able to have some more consistent patrolling at those locations. And they'll be able to check in whenever they make those patrols, and we'll be able to see that increased patrol at those locations.
What do with all the beer they confiscate?
That's not for me to decide.
I'm curious how you're gonna measure the success, over time of this position. Like what, do you already track like the number of vandalism acts, or I mean, how will we know it's being effective? And I assume it's year round.
Oh, it is, it's year round. You know, one of the things that's always a challenge is vandalisms and break-ins and just unwanted activity at some of the unmanned locations. We don't have anything right now, we don't have a matrix that says, oh, we caught somebody with, you know, staff ran into or picked up needles or picked up, we don't have any matrix that shows that. But talking with the sheriff, he's in agreement that he feels this presence is gonna make a big difference. If someone is using that location as a meetup or as a place for unwanted activity, as this deputy becomes more regular, that's not gonna happen. So we're trying to make those areas safer. I don't know if we're gonna be able to show it in numbers, other than the amount of patrols that we're gonna be able to show that we weren't getting before, that now we're getting at those locations. We would be able to pull the dispatch, the crime activity.
Yeah,
at
that
those
would be
locations.
something I think
You know,
that would be
we'll look
interesting
at
over time
over
to see.
time. It may take a couple of years to be able to go back and capture previous two, post two, to see what kind of numbers we get.
I will say, going on with what you're saying, I know having adult children and young children, that love to fish and kayak and things of that nature, we live right next to South Union, and my daughters wanna go, and I'm not without dad or your brothers, you know, just because of what hangs out there from time to time. So I think this is a good idea. I mean, if you've got, like you said, if you've got a patrolling officer, and they know that he's not set time of when he may show up,
Right,
I think that's a great deterrent.
deterrent, yeah.
Yes, sir.
As technology comes about and the internet availabilities, especially the rural areas, have you thought about some type of camera system? You know,
We actually priced out a camera system 2 years ago, and it was still a little more than we wanted to tackle. We did do cameras at Seneca Creek, but that was because we had a direct link with Clemson University. And we bought the cameras, and now they're monitoring and maintaining them. Our IT folks are looking at 3 of our targeted areas right now to see, is there something we can build to do some sort of camera system that we could have in place, but we're not quite there yet. But it is in conversation behind the doors, and we looked at a camera system for all of them, and cameras plus internet was well over $500,000. And that was just a little far beyond what we wanted to do. And because you want the camera to also record for at least 30 days. You know, if something comes up, somebody calls and says, hey, I had something broken into last week, you want the sheriff to be able to go back and see that activity and utilize those cameras the way they're designed to. So when you start doing that and housing that, and the server and all that stuff, it was costly. But you're right, as technology advances, some of those things are coming down, and we are looking at that with our IT on a regular basis. And they know that I want that, and so they're trying to find the right fit. And it may be that we do a pilot part first. We do one to see what's gonna work, check it out, maybe our worst location, and then kind of build up from there. But it is something we're discussing.
privacy concerns with that?
Not if you use, not if it goes to the sheriff. I wouldn't have, all that would go straight to the sheriff's office. It wouldn't be anything that we would manage or have the footage of, or. So it'd be no different than, your license plate readers and things like that that are out.
Public property.
Yeah.
Now, and just to confirm, the issue is not, is internet run near these places, it's if there is a node point that has enough power.
It's gotta have enough power to run it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And a lot of our unmanned locations are remote enough to where they don't have that right now. So the infrastructure to get that to that location was a lot of the cost. So that is the proposed FY '26 supplemental budget. There is increases in there, but I've tried to explain, most of them are either wage and comp or the new law enforcement officer. And then the direct moving over of the Visitor Coney funds into this LAT fund. Any specific questions on this? Yes, sir.
What I'm having trouble with the field is, how does this supplemental budget coordinate with the county budget? I can't remember exactly where it shows up in the county budget. But the reason I'm asking that question is, county council's working on a budget that's about inflation and population growth, which that's gonna be what, 5-6% this year, I don't know. But we're looking at 40% here.
You're looking at 40% just that's identified. There's only a 5% increase on the total budget, because you had some undesignated funds in this lat account, where I'm trying to designate them to make it cleaner and show exactly where everything's going. So the 40% jump from last year to this year, yes, on the actual budget, but not on the fund balance itself.
Okay.
Because we had some undesignated funds last year that was just kind of there for projects. And so now we're designating the fund to be able to show this is where everything's going. And that helps us out and it keeps us accountable too. It makes it cleaner to show.
Does that mean we'll have to forego projects in the future?
No, they're actually built in to some of these areas.
Okay. So just looking at what was in fiscal year '25 to the proposed '26, and, what was not there and what is in '26, there's about just quick math, like $230,000 increase of what wasn't in '25 and now is in '26.
Yeah.
Visitor County Park Operations and the law enforcement. And that's coming out of the county general fund, correct? It is not coming out of the general fund
So
anymore.
the 72.5, the 20 is coming, it's being deducted on the general fund side.
Right, yeah.
The law enforcement is completely new, so it was not in there to begin with.
Gotcha.
It is a completely new piece.
So if, for some reason, if the ATAX dollars drop dramatically for any reason, and we're at a shortage on our budget, is there any way that the general fund would come and supplement, since we're taking burden off of them?
It would not supplement immediately without us presenting
Approval.
a plan to county council.
Yeah,
There is, as we talked about during the grant cycle last time, the fund balance for this is $1.2 million. This is right at 938,000 plus your 140 on your grants. That gets us close to that 1.1 that I'm expecting to come in. But we have a 1 year, I talked about trying to have a year there in case we do start seeing decline. And as we see declines, this will have to adjust.
right.
To market base.
And that was gonna be my next question, is that we're not hurting our, the grant money that
This does not hurt the grant money. I still expect the grant money to stay at 70,000 per cycle right now.
You say you have 1 year, so we have 1 year
You
that
basically
stays in
have
the
a year-
account,
Yeah, you have a balance of 1.2
that stays in there for a year,
that's kind of there as our
buffer,
buffer,
okay,
just in case we do have a market drop. Then
going
I-
into next year.
Going into next year, I can finish this year out and make adjustments on what we're seeing.
Okay. Understood. I just wanna make sure we had a cushion, since we're taking burden away from the county.
Yeah, so roughly that $100,000 that is being removed from the county general fund is, even though the budget is increasing by, say, 5%, there's actually, it's increasing by more than that, you're just taking some of that money out of there essentially. They're able to spend that 100,000 on something else
Yeah,
before
that's-
they increase
right,
it
that-
by,
And that's up to the administrator.
which is
I don't-
awesome.
Yeah, I
No,
don't
mean,
have
that's-
anything to do with that.
Yes, thank you for that work, I appreciate that.
But to answer your question, Mr. Adams, in years past, when this commission would pass this budget, it would then go to county council as a separate line item. This year, we have actually included this fund in the budget ordinance. So you will see it, if you pass this today, this will be starting the first, second, and third reading of the budget ordinance under these funds, and they'll be separated out. And so it'll all be part of the budget ordinance moving forward. And that's an accountability piece for us to make it part of our financial software.
Still, ain't this gonna put pressure for the budget to be over the limit on the inflation and?
No, because I think when they view, they take the tourism side, when they view that, I think that's separated. And again, I don't make that decision.
I'm like you, I don't.
Yeah, I don't make that decision, but we are trying to show it in the budget so that it's cleaner and that it captures for all of us.
One other question, if we say sometime in the future, we want to increase our grants, more requests for different organizations, money would have to be transferred out of this to cover that.
It would either be adjusted here or the fund balance would decrease a little bit.
Okay.
And if, right now, with 1.259 in the fund balance, and projected 1.1 coming in, you've got 200,000, 250,000, 252,000 sitting there that's, kind of ahead of that buffer,
Got some cushion.
just a little bit. And you don't want that to grow. I mean, you want to, again, we're supposed to spend this money every 2 years, so, as it comes in, I want to make sure I have encumbered use for it.
Off the top of your head, this $938,000, you know how much of that actually comes out of the general fund?
Zero. This is all accommodations tax money. There is zero general fund dollars.
But it offsets the general fund?
Yes, every bit offsets general fund.
Yeah, that's what I was talking.
Yep.
The whole $938,000?
The whole 938,000. So the impact of our local A-tax is equal to the impact of the quarry it has for the county.
Okay, I got it.
That was a statement that our administrator made during our council retreat this year.
What I picked up earlier was there's no one in the county, local taxes, personal taxes going to that.
There is
at all.
no
This is coming out all
property tax on the
accommodations.
Oklahoma County resident going to
I
support
know that.
tourism stuff. And that's, again, that was a goal of ours to get to this point. We're there.
How far, in advance did we meet the goal, or is it on target, or, just
I didn't
curious?
really have a goal.
Okay.
I mean, when I said it, it was before I retired.
Okay.
But hopefully I got some years left in me.
I mean, it really is awesome, so thank you. That is,
I mean, think about where we were 10 years ago compared to where we are now. I mean, I can see the money that's come in is extraordinary.
Once we have no more questions, then we'll be ready for a vote on this budget.
Is there, oh, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, just to confirm, because it is now included in the budget, if there is an objection, it will have to come back to this committee for reapproval.
So the state statute requires this commission to make the recommendation to county council.
So like if council, like in the first, second readings of the
Right.
budget, if something in this gets flagged, then we would have to re-recommend, or would it?
Potentially, I need to check on
Council.
with Mr. Root on that to see. If that happens, this is the first. If that happens, then there may have to be an emergency meeting called prior to the end of the budget process, to get us to the same level, if you will.
But since none of this is coming out of the county general fund, they shouldn't object to the way that we're spending our funds, is that correct? Think?
That's not a question I want to answer. I'm not a.
Well, I mean, it
I'm not
wouldn't
elected.
affect their budget though, so when they're going through their budget deliberation,
We, I
this
feel
would.
like from a staff standpoint, we worked really hard to take everything from a tourism side out of the general fund, and that was a goal to get here. But that doesn't mean that maybe, and it could be that they just have, potentially may want to use it for something else that we may have to look at, that does fit within these requirements.
Okay.
So,
I'll just tell you what concerns me. I mean, I don't disagree, you've done a good job here, but there's a little bit of mentality, you got to spend it cause you got it.
That's a state statute, that's not
I know, but I mean, you gotta spend it, like you said, you gotta be spent within a year.
2 years,
You know, so,
on the state side especially.
I have to, when I think about that, I have to ask myself, do we really need it? But that's just me.
Well, isn't that similar to the grants? We ask them to spend the money that we
And
give
that's
them
the reason,
within
is because
a
I
year or what have
I
you?
have to say that it's spent within the 2 years.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of the same,
We got it, we gotta spend it.
Right.
You know.
but I'm sure you can find projects to spend it on, right? I mean,
Yeah, our wish list is big.
is there anything
I mean, you
that,
understand where I'm coming
I
from.
do, sure.
I'm not being critical, not at all, but, you know.
is there anything that, is on the horizon that you really want to do? We talked about the cameras, but what else is kind of on your radar?
Let's get to the capital projects
Okay.
update, and I'll share just a couple where we are.
And we could talk about it at a future meeting too, if that's better
Well,
timing.
I've got a slide at the end for our update project.
Okay.
Any other discussion for the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I would like to make a motion to approve the budget as written.
I second.
All those in favor?
Vote is unanimous. Thank you all very much. Our work today is making that happen, so appreciate it. All right, the second action item is the left side of that picture I showed you all ago with the state aid tax money. So by statute, we have to take that 30% and give it over to an organization that has an ongoing tourism promotion program. And the way the statute's written is, once you start bringing in $50,000 of revenue is when that has to be created. So both the county and the city of Seneca pay their 30% money for the Visit Oconee operations. If one of the other towns ever get to a point where they reach $50,000 by statute, they would have to pick an organization that has an ongoing tourism promotion program to send that money to as well by statute. So that's how Visit Oconee was created back in 2008, and that's how a large portion of that money goes to. So if you look at my budget for, total budget for the 30%, you'll see that every quarter that money comes in and a check goes straight out. The 165 is I take a 3-year average. So I go back the last 3 years and I look at all 4 quarters for the last 3 years and I take an average. The reason I do that is because it's market-based. If we do hit a drop, then I'm gonna be still within my market base of that number, and I don't look at, we get to April, May, and June, and we're short on dollars. Typically, if we're in a healthy environment and we stay where we are, we may have an extra $8,000 or $10,000 over the course of the year because it is market-based. Or we could, last year we saw a 1% drop, we ended up with a couple $1,000s less than what I budgeted last year. And when that happens, Visit Oconee has to make an adjustment because that's all the money they're getting from us. We don't give them any more, we give them what's coming through the 30%. So the breakdown of what that looks like, the blue is the 65% money. I'll share with you through some unexpected attrition and then a upcoming retirement that we know of. We're looking at ways to be a little more efficient in this organization, in this operation. And so right now, the current year, there is a president and CEO of Visit Oconee, there's a sales manager, there's a marketing content specialist, and then there's the customer service piece, which is part-time. The structure that I've proposed to our administrator moving forward is that the PRT director's position assumes the president and CEO duties moving forward. And then that position is downgraded to an operations manager, a VP role for the nonprofit side, office manager. And then we are outsourcing some of our marketing right now because of the attrition issue that we dealt with a couple months ago. And that's working for us. So we're gonna actually keep it going, and that's showing a savings for us right now. We're accomplishing our goal on the marketing side, and we're saving probably $40,000 just on that marketing side alone. And then with the change in the structure, this is actually $101,000 less than last year's number. So last year was 332. You can see on this budget right here, the red, the Visit Oconee FY '25, that was 332, 237. This year proposal is 231,570. So that is a deduct of $101,000. We're not cutting the marketing position, we're just not gonna fund it right now to make sure that's gonna work for us operationally. We will revisit that if we see that we need that position, and look at that in the future. So this is a deduct of about $100,000. Again, that money has to be spent every 2 years, so when we get to our projects in a few minutes, I'll show you where potentially I'll be using some of that money on the project side that aligns with the state statute.
But the Visit Oconee figure in this somewhere.
This is visited.
This is Visit Oconee.
That's okay.
Yep.
That's what-
Yeah, this is the Visit Oconee budget. The 30% manages the majority of their advertising.
I see it.
And then that 72 that was in the other budget, that's kind of the operations, that's the
$396,000.
office. Yep. And that's a deduct, like I said, of about $101,000 this year. I feel confident that we can do that, and pull that off. It does add, a little more to my plate, but, I've been heavily involved in that. I've been the chair of that for a little bit, so I feel confident that we can make that move, as Mr. Sloan retires, a little later on in the year, so.
Just to confirm from a compliance issue with the state, that is not an issue for you to be the county employee there?
No, we'll confirm all that with the bylaws, as we move forward, but it'll be a very similar setup as Oconee Economic Alliance once it's complete.
Okay,
Where it's
cool.
a county employee and the president CEO of the nonprofit side. Yeah. They will still have to comply with all the nonprofit laws of the state. We'll have, that'll be what the VP helps me do, is make sure that piece manages, moving forward.
Awesome. Yeah.
On the advertising side, the 165, again, that's directly coming in, directly going out. That's website, that's all the stuff that happens there, all the ads. We maximize those dollars. If Riley and Alex are both on the Visit Oconee board, we meet and they get to see the breakdown of all that money and all those things. And, anytime we have a chance to partner with people, we partner with people to get the best bang for our buck. We've done really well there. So that number used to be, I would say, about 135-ish. And so the last 4 or 5 years, it has grown a little bit. It gives us an opportunity to do a few things with. But a lot of that is just some standard ads that we do. Usually they're partnered with either Upcountry or Lake Hartwell Country. And then, of course, our social media, our digital media is expensive as well. So all your website and things like that you have out there. But all that meets the statute of the state in terms of the advertising and promotion budget that's utilized locally tax for. So the 65 is the blue, the 30% is the green. And that does require you to make two separate votes, that you have to vote on each one of those, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Off the subject, the money you holding in your accounts, like that 1.2 million or whatever, is that invested in the rest of the county money?
Yes,
So it's in that pot?
it's in a fund, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll occasionally see an interest.
Okay.
I
I figured it was.
In the 65% portion, the 231, do you believe that's enough money to go out and hire that new vice presidential position.
So what we did is we looked at the wage and comp study from last year. We brought down that to an office manager role. And then I gave myself, administrator recommended that we put a 6% buffer on that in case we find somebody with experience. So we feel like we've got a good number there
Okay.
to go out and do that. But if somebody with 20 years' experience comes and knocks our doors off, then we may have to look at that and may match where they're coming from. But
Yeah.
this is what we're trying to stay within.
Any other discussion about the 65% or the 30% ATAX funds? All right. Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the budget of the 65% ATAX fund as presented?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All those in favor? All right.
It's unanimous.
And do we have a motion for the 30% ATAX fund as presented?
I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Thank you very much. That will again become part of the budget ordinance as council moves forward. I have one last action item. We typically have needs around the parks. This is at Chaw-Ram, looking at replacing an older mower. We have found this particular mower to be very dependable for us around the county. So this is a state contract purchase. It will come out of local ATAX money, not general fund money, but it will replace a mower at Chaw-Ram Park. You can see the state contract cost, and the state contract is locally here, so it will be bought out of Oconee County. And that's a cost of $11,413 that I would ask that you would approve us to be able to replace that mower with, so that we don't have to use general fund money.
Any discussion about the proposal?
Is this one of the mowers that got hit by a car?
Hit by a car?
Yeah, you were saying earlier that some of them get hit by cars.
Oh, no, that was a sign. That was the
Oh,
signs.
signs, okay.
Yeah, some of the road mowers hit our signs.
I got you.
That's fine. That's
Okay,
why
I
need
missed that.
The new employee. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the mower replacement for Chaw-Ram Park and the amount listed.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so capital projects, just a quick update. We're right at our hour, and we're trying to go fast to get you out of here. A lot of completes on here, which is showing a little bit of progress for us. Gateway signs are complete. At Chaw-Ram, I got it broken out by park. We are, the maintenance building, we have taken down to just a regular metal building. And so, once our roads and bridges is able to, level that for us and get it ready and graded, then we're just gonna put up a regular, metal building on that, a local metal building that will accomplish our goals there. So that's in the pre-bid phase. We'll get quotes on that and utilize the lowest quote, but the building itself will be under $50,000, so it's gonna be a good win for us. Chaw-Ram Shelter 1, we have completed the water runoff issue. Roads and Bridges did some work there and helped us. I really wanted that to sit through some storms to make sure that it was gonna hold before I spent money and built a shelter back. It has done well, and so over the next couple of quarters, we'll be looking at that design and put that out. My goal would be to build a shelter there similar to what we built at High Falls, so that we match the decor with that, and point shelter at High Falls. At High Falls, the rec building is now complete, it's up, it looks fantastic. We did a lot of the work in-house, and so staff pride is really high on that project. The Alexander Cannon Hill House is in progress now. Council just approved the envelope construction piece of that for the roof, the siding, and the windows. And again, staff is doing a lot of the demo, a lot of the deck building. Again, it helps build some staff pride on the products that we offer to the public. Our shoreline restoration is complete. We may be looking at a few other items, areas of the shoreline down the line, but we were able to complete that here recently. I'm starting to look at our playgrounds. We've got a number of playgrounds that are now 20-plus years old, not as ADA compliant as I want them to be. And so we're gonna begin looking at ways to expand. When I expand, make sure that we are better in compliance with, they're compliant, but it may just be a single piece. And I want it to be a little more encompassing so that everyone has the ability to use those. So we'll be looking at that across the board. At South Cove, Kelly, you asked about the big project. The tennis and pickleball bids are due today. So I'll have sticker shock this afternoon, and then I'll figure out how to make next step with it, with today's construction prices. And a lot of these projects that I'm waiting on are basically because of that bid that's due today. I wanna see that number, I wanna see what impacts it's gonna have on us, make sure we can afford that project, as well as some of our smaller ones that we got moving forward. So once that comes in today, we'll be able to get that to council for consideration, and then that'll help me lay out my timeline for the future projects, knowing the money that's coming in. Cause I'm expecting that to be a bigger project. We're building two new tennis courts, expanding the existing footprint for 12 pickleball, new lights for both, and then 2 asphalt parking areas. So I expect a decent number for that. We've got some money that we've saved up and built for it. Knock on wood, we're gonna be in line with it when it comes in and be able to take the next steps. Superintendent residence South Cove is complete. That was done mainly in-house. We bid out the electrical and we bid out the roof. Everything else, we did a lot of that in-house. So we've got some really talented folks, both within our parks and with our facilities staff. Beach upgrade is one of those that's kind of in waiting for the dollars. Same thing with the playgrounds. Seneca Creek cameras are up and running, they're complete. And then again, I've got 2 playgrounds, one at Friendship, one at Fairplay. They're both really old. I mean, they're probably 40 years old. And I want to upgrade them as we go through our playground process. And then, electrical inspections are in progress now. The core, this is the first year we're having to do this. Anywhere that we have power, a restroom or anything like that at those unmanned locations, the Corps is requiring us to do an electrical inspection on an annual basis. Typically, our staff goes out and fixes things, our electrician, whatever. But, due to some things that they've had going on around the lake with electricity, they've added this to the policy. It'll be a little bit of a cost for us, but we're adding that in. We feel like we've added that into the budget to cover that for next year.
Does that inspection have to be done by outside?
It has to be done by a licensed, I might say this wrong, grade 2, a licensed electrical contractor, whatever. I mean, there's different levels of contractors. So yeah, we are reaching out now. We've got 3 people we've reached out to for a quote. And it's a form that the Corps provided to us that says, is it safe? Are there code violations? And then we'll have to list how do we fix those code violations. All of the restrooms on the Corps side are the same restrooms they gave to us. We haven't done any upgrades to them. They're all original to the lake, so back in the 60s. So I anticipate there will be some projects that we're gonna have to get up to code.
They let you have them, but here you gotta spend some money on them.
Yeah, and we've had them for 10+ years, but this is the first year this is gonna probably provide an impact of that. And they should be up to code. So it's something we'll work through, again, hopefully with tourism dollars and be able to bring those up to code and make them safe, make them code compliant. I don't have anything unsafe right now, but getting them code compliant. That was a lot. That was probably our longest meeting of the year, but I felt like I wanted to be a little more detailed, to share where we're going, what we're doing. Any questions?
Go ahead, if you have more.
No, I was just gonna say, the fall grants are due August 15th, 3 p.m. Our next meeting is August 21st, here, 10 a.m. That'll be to review those grants. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Anyone have any further questions? No, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Say it.
Okay.